All right, thank you for staying with the Monday Report. Now the town hall session begins, where we had asked you a question: what will you consider while you go to the polls in 7 days to come? At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. In fact, let's start from there before I even introduce my guest and see what you're saying online. Let's bring that up and see what you're saying. Chiriba says, I'll consider integrity. Integrity covers all aspects of honesty, transparency, trustworthy and reliability. I'll vote in someone I believe will reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Okay? So the next one here, you can also send in a message on 22422. Just tell us your name and where you're texting from. You're saying, I'm looking for a leader who will bring forth the interest of people and leaders that are united. It's so sad that we are experiencing a disunity from the highest leaders in command. Okay? Let's see what else you're saying here. We'll talk about that issue of disunity and the verbal spat that's ongoing right now. Baraza, I think in choosing leaders, Kenyans should focus on a politician's track record, integrity, good governance, and a person's ability to deal with corruption. Okay? Let's see what else you're saying here on this issue of what you'll consider as you decide who you're voting for. Titus Lisushe says that love the leaders who fight for equality, peace, and are against the awful corruption. Okay? Let's see what else you're saying here. You can also send in a message on 22422. That's our SMS line. Let us know your name and where you're texting from. Samuel Origi says, I'll be looking for an honesty, transparent and focused leader, as well as corruption-free leader come this election, from an MCA to the president. All right? Let's just take a few more and then get into the discussion now. Mabunde says, I pray for leaders who will put their constituents first and have a sober mind to do what is right. All right. Okay. We'll come back to most of them still coming through. Let's read just one more, then get into the conversation. Then we'll get into the rest of the feedback that's coming through. Walter says, what I look for mostly in a leader is the ability to understand problems facing their subjects and offering solutions towards the same. All right. That's where we leave it for now. Let's bring in more. Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Monday Report. Let me introduce my guest, beginning from my immediate left, Annie Reri, Executive Director, FIDA, and also ELOG Chairperson. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you.
Archbishop Anthony Muheria is here. Asante sana for making time as well.
Thank you.
And Sheikh Ibrahim Lithome. Thank you so much for making time.
Thank you, Trevor.
Let's start with the verbal spat that has been ongoing. And I'll start with you, Archbishop. The exchange between the top leadership. What is your reaction to that, and how can this be toned down?
Thank you, Trevor. I think first it's we should call to our leaders to maturity in relation in statesmanship. And it's just showing, I do believe, the no readiness to address issues in their fullness, and it is indeed a shame. It is something that we should not be treated to. And we have pleaded with all leaders that it's unbecoming of any leader to take it as their point of seeking popularity, the shaming, the spiting, the insulting. It's for all leaders, they must seem to be persons of some minimal respect. And that spat is also showing lack of respect towards the Kenyan electorate. So we are pleading. It's not a must that we have to go that way. Let's speak about issues and let's respect one another. That is very key for any leader. If you don't have respect for the person who you don't like, or the person who doesn't think like you, or the person who perhaps you have crossed paths with, then, and you're not able to make him work with you in a agreeable environment and respectful, I do believe that is unfortunately a sign that you have failed in that area of leadership. So we are asking for them to respect one another and to respect us. And that's not only that spat at all levels during this final stretch. We need a lot of respect. Yeah, but Archbishop, that failure in leadership that you're talking about, nobody seems to be taking responsibility for it, especially the top leadership. They're now trading that same blame of failure in leadership. You're the one who failed, you're the one who failed, you left me and then I failed. So how... We shouldn't be treated to that. We should never have had that in public. Just like our parents, they disagreed sometimes and they sorted out in the bedroom, behind curtains, and still they were looking for ways to solve. I do believe that we should learn from what we've seen And we still have, they have still a chance to redeem themselves by, again, what these leaders in our country never seem to know, to ask for pardon. We make a mistake, we say something out of place, and we're unable to come and say, sorry, I really didn't mean this. I'm sorry that I said this. That's not what I meant. Look, I offended you. I'm sorry. You're my competitor, or you are, let's respect one another. But, you know, you did me bad. But I didn't deserve to call you this. I think when it becomes visceral, it's no longer intellectual, and it's no longer something that is going to build our country. Yeah. So we should move from visceral feelings to intellectual engagement and to true love for the country beyond our own positions.
Yeah. Sheikh, how should these differences be addressed within the top leadership?
I think we need to remind our leaders that leadership is taking responsibility. And then we need to ask ourselves, what purpose is it serving? By having these exchanges, and especially in public, number one, what kind of role model are we showing to the young people when they sit down there and watch the top leadership of the country having these exchanges in public? So I think we need to remind our leaders that if they have any differences, because it's normal for human beings to have differences, as the Archbishop said, even siblings have differences, parents have differences, but then you need to agree on the best way to resolve those differences, and this is not the best. And especially when we know what is at stake, because what is at stake, each of the two leaders, or the leaders that are at the top making these exchanges, each one of them has a crowd following him and cheering. They have people cheering them up, and it is dividing the country. So for me, I think we need to keep on reminding the leadership that if they have differences, there are better ways of resolving, and they should lead from the front. Yeah. We keep on saying that we have hate speech. We don't want hate speech. People should avoid hate speech. But this is hate speech, actually, from the leaders. So I think going forward, I think our leaders need to take responsibility and think before they talk, and they need to ask themselves what is at stake and what purpose is it serving. It's just creating more tension in the country. So I think it's very unfortunate, but all is not lost. I think we want to use this opportunity to call upon them. Please tone it down. It is not helping you, neither is it helping the other person, and definitely it's not helping the country.
And can we have a law that governs good manners? How can that be resolved at this particular point? 7 days to the polls and we still see a lot of vitriol being poured. How can this be resolved?
Thank you, Trevor. I think to start with, in terms of the legal framework, we do have Chapter 6. That speaks a lot to who we are as a person and what we are looking at in terms of leadership. But from where I sit, Trevor, I feel that what we are suffering as a country is a breakdown in our value system, in what should be right and what should be wrong. And when we see leaders at that very highest level engaging in very unnecessary rhetoric that has been really called out, then one begs to really wonder what's happening at the grassroots. And for us who have worked a lot in terms of the grassroots, then it's no wonder we are having cases of still a lot of voter bribery. We are having people turning up for rallies expecting a handout. So it's really what we'd refer to as our ethos as a country that gets amplified from at leadership level, and it just ends up, as you said, not being good manners. And the worry is that now we are forming a culture where if you go and seek votes without having to use certain language or certain temperament, then you're not deemed to be a leader. So is that what we'll call the definition of a good leader? Certainly not. So I think, and I feel especially having this discussion very close to the election and has been really spoken to by religious leaders, there will be need for us as a country, I think, to have a very serious dialogue about what our value system is. What are we exposing our young ones to? And when you seek office, whether you're running to be a member of county assembly, to be a president, to be a leader within the corporate world or private sector or any other sector of the country, we must have that very serious yardstick that we can be able to call you out and get serious with our leadership. So what we are seeing from where we are observing, these leaders are really on the spot because they're the political leaders, but then we need to question across the board, what kind of leadership are we having as a country, and is it leadership that we are proud of? And yes, I do agree, there are leaders who are exemplary. We have great religious leaders who are at this panel with myself, and so there is something to look up for. So what we are calling upon, and especially what is unfortunate, is that we are a few days to the election. This kind of tension building, a lot of name calling through podiums is unnecessary. And so we also join in as civil society to just call upon the leadership that's going around the country, seeking votes in this home stretch. Can we just have a tone down? Can we remember why we are leaders and espouse what Chapter 6, that they really took an oath of office to really protect, really expects them to do and to behave.
Yeah, Archbishop, Annie is talking about Chapter 6, but let's talk about Chapter 9, the executive. Article 147(2) doesn't specifically say the role of a deputy president. In fact, it says is a principal assistant to the president. Is that where we got it structurally wrong? That we should have given everyone their role so that you can apportion blame where it belongs?
Thank you, Trevor. I wouldn't claim to be a legal expert about the Chapter 6, but what I would say is that indeed there is too many things in our Constitution that we can improve. But I want to actually second what Anne has said, that the problem is a Constitution that doesn't sit firmly on a foundation of values, or where we are eroding the values upon which it should blossom, is not a Constitution that will hold the country up. It is just a Constitution to just catch the guys who are doing wrong. But we are speaking about building a nation. We're building a community. We are thinking about a society where there is respect of one another, and we can live as brothers and sisters, respecting our many differences that are there. So I think we shouldn't base this argument merely on a law that stipulates and prescribes. I think there is something deeper. The law actually comes and follows life. The law prescribes in order that something more can blossom. It's like the touchlines of a football match. The football match is not about the size of the goal, nor the lines at the side. The football match is about the game. But you need those linesmen so that this doesn't turn out, and the rules, so that this doesn't turn out to be a wrestling match, which is different from a football match. So I really think what we have to do is, first and foremost, every leader must embrace honesty in speech and truth. Every leader must also embrace collaboration. You don't have to be forced to collaborate. We can't be anarchical. We can't be leaders who enshrine that the leadership is me. I must be ready to collaborate with others. And that's not, you can't put that on the law. And with this also, and we go back to what I said, leaders who respect even those who perhaps think differently and have different views, and you respectively listen and take what is a critique, or you take our criticism and you take what is positive, and you embrace at the intellectual level, even though perhaps you may have very different feelings. So I think we have to mature in how we engage as a country, and not just always run to the law. We must run to something a bit more value-driven. And I've liked what Anne has said there. That is truly foundational. And I think even our Constitution, in the very beginning, part of what it starts is by describing certain values. We call them values. You may call them those things that we aspire to as a country.
But Sheikh, did we get it structurally wrong? Because some people say that respect is anchored within the law. For example, the role of the deputy president, should it have been appointive rather than elective, so that in the event everybody knows where to draw the line?
Trevor, the same people now who are throwing words at each other, not long ago, were calling one another brother. And it was the same Constitution. The rules have not changed in as far as the law is concerned. The Constitution is the same. At one time, when they were pulling in the same direction, it served very well. The Constitution served very well. So it's more of values and also the respect for one another.
Yeah.
So I won't say that the Constitution is perfect. No man-made law would be perfect. We can always make it better. But I think it's more of the values that we have. When we start pulling in different directions, does it mean now we lose respect for one another and even respect for the country? Because this is also not respecting the country and the Kenyans, you know. So I feel let us not blame it to the law and the roles, that the roles are not very distinct. Of course, we can improve on the law, but it's more of the values that, Trevor, today we agree. There is a way of agreeing in a respectable way. And when it is time to disagree, because it's human to disagree, can we also do it in a respectable way?
Yeah.
I think it's more of values and morals, as the Archbishop and our sister here said.
Yeah, but Anne, you know, it's the gray areas, because we all agree as a Kenyan people that we need someone with integrity. But the yardstick to measure that integrity is very relative. People think of it very differently. Should it have been more explicit, or is it just, even if it's a moral values you're talking about, how then do you instill them so that it's standard? Everybody sees this and knows this is the wrong person, this is the right person.
From how we look at it, Trevor, actually, we have complicated things to some extent, because right is right, wrong is wrong. I don't see how more we can define that. If you use a public podium to insult someone, that is just it. So the more we try to prescribe and use a law to now qualify this is not so much of an insult, or this is not so much of a truth, it's a half-truth, I think that's where the rain started beating us. I think this issue is as simple as right being right, wrong being wrong. And the minute we appreciate that as a nation, the minute we now know right is right and wrong is wrong, we will be very quick to question when leaders fight at a podium, when someone amasses wealth that they cannot explain, when you have people trying to steal exams. I mean, that's what I'm saying for us. Right now, the spotlight is on the political class, but there are so many instances, if we break this down, that our value system as a country has really not been serving the purpose it should, or we did not get it right, such that if we now get to the political class, we now question why are they having these fights. Yet I'll go and listen to them, Trevor, as that Kenyan, and when they leave and they've not given me unga or 50 shillings, I'm not happy with that rally. So we cannot also be the ones to really point fingers. We must have this conversation, and it's not an easy conversation. Yeah. And sadly, what this means, and that's why as Kenyans we need to be very conscious, it's not a conversation just during elections, is that what we are not appreciating over time is that our reputation, our credibility as a country is at risk. If you become that country that people often think about corruption, people often think that we're not honest, people question academic credentials. When you have young people who go to represent us, or even you as a Kenyan, you happen to be outside the country, that's when you realize the effect of that stigma. So that's why we cannot isolate it. It would be very narrow thinking for us to imagine this issue is just affecting us within our home territory. There's an international question to it. There's who we are as a people. And that's why we must go back to the drawing board and question, as a Kenyan people, what do we want to be identified with? Yes, we are happy. We have a lot of good going on. Our sportsmen and women do us proud every other time. We have great ambassadors, great leadership, as I've mentioned, such as those who I am with on this panel. But when it comes to the political class or anything political, yes, it's a contest, but must it be a contest that is marred by dishonesty, by lack of respect? Can't you go and just seek your votes? And at the end of the day, we keep on saying we want people who, winners who are able to win with humility and losers who win with dignity. But we have really made it such a contest that we forget that these are people's parents, they're people's fathers and mothers and siblings who are seeking office, that even if you come second or third, you cannot hold your head high in the country because of that shame factor. It was such a competition, and I think that's where we missed the point. And that's now why we start wondering, that person who has given handouts, we start now making noise, our representative is nowhere to be seen. Of course, they're nowhere to be seen. They're trying to recover the money they gave you as the electorate. They have to see how to recoup all these investments. So this issue affects each of us, starting from those at the highest office. And the more we try to proscribe and regulate it, it's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
It's as simple as getting back to a value system. Our Katiba really speaks out in broad terms what will govern us: self-respect, non-discrimination, equality and equity, respect, mutual respect for each other. And if we are serious about these issues, they're supposed to be mainstreamed in everything we do. It's not that because it's politics, that's when you have these values, but when you're doing business or you're selling your wares, these values don't affect you. So when we get serious and realize it's also speaking to our reputation as a people, and when people around our neighborhood and internationally start casting aspersions on who we are as a people, then it becomes very serious.
Yeah, but Archbishop, how do you standardize integrity, whereas there are some leaders who will say this is only happening to me because I'm on one side, the other side has also not done anything. It's also in the Bible, by the way, John 8:7. He who has no sin, be the first one to cast the stone. I mean, how then do you standardize
I think
integrity?
first and foremost, we must agree we are all sinners and we have flaws. And that's the first thing of being human, by accepting vulnerability so that you can be risen up and you can be lifted up to higher heights. Any leader who does not recognize his vulnerability, who realizes that he comes from dust, as it were, God has given him gifts. He's not deserving. He does not come as already with a silver spoon on your mouth, like you're made for greatness just because you were born. We all have come from not knowing how to speak. You all have come from crawling. Let's be humble enough and accept our vulnerability. That's the first thing that will give us integrity. It is all of us have got a flaw. The second thing is that we can all improve. Even the worst thug can change, and you can embrace goodness. So we also must not be carried by branding people for life. Because he was a son of the local chicken thief, he must be a thief. No, he's got a chance to become even the local pastor or the priest. So in other words, let's not try to pigeon and label people for life. The person was in prison. He has been released. He's not a thief anymore. He's come, he's changed. He may be even a useful member of the society who can actually help the drug addicts. So I think it's important that we don't try to fossilize ideas or labels that we put on people. And then thirdly, there is right and wrong, and everyone in their conscience know. And when we start judging from others, it becomes very difficult, as you've said, because you can really not judge the heart. You can judge the action, but you cannot judge the intention. And the evil lies in the intention, not just in the action. You might be driving, you hit someone with a car, the poor person dies. You really are not guilty of killing that person. You're just, it's an accident. So I think it's important that you realize that the judgment of integrity, of the action and the uprightness or the immorality or ethical content of an action is not merely the action as done. There is a lot more, and that's why name calling is not the way. But going on the legal side, we must have a minimum level and standard whereby we say a person whose integrity has been put to doubt through a legal system with evidence-based about his action because he did this or this, that person, again, comes now, the law, the legal system, that person is therefore not eligible. But the legal system must work. Our justice system must work so that you can reach there. And it must be free of corruption. And I think, to conclude this, is that the problem is that we are always looking and driving looking with the rearview mirror. We're looking at what we failed. We're looking at what people did. But we're not spending enough time looking at the road that we should set. How do we set a road towards an ethical society? How do we make Kenya less corrupt-based and less self-based? And so to build that culture is much more difficult than to call out the local chicken thief. And I think that is what we must direct ourselves going forward. How do you build peace? Peace is not just catching the people who are warmongers. Peace is something that must blossom from within the Kenyan. And that's why this week we are saying, let it blossom. Let's see how the Kenyans can actually decide. We'll let peace blossom. And it doesn't matter how many weeds are growing around this peace blossom flower, we are going to keep this blossom. So it's something from within. Let's not beat ourselves so bad for what we have failed or the leaders we've not got. Let's learn and then look forward. So it's the culture we must build, which is a project.
Yeah.
Let us not just look at the failures that we've had.
Yeah.
So let's be patient going forward, and at the same time be very optimistic that indeed we can actually blossom as a nation.
Yeah, but Sheikh, where do we begin? Because there are more people are saying that people who are my age and above, we are too far gone.
As everybody has said here, it's a culture. And I think even as we point fingers at the political leadership, because of the problems that we have now and what we are discussing now, we need to ask ourselves, who makes these people leaders? It's we, the Kenyans. So actually, our leaders are a reflection of who we are. Even as they throw words at each other, somebody somewhere is cheering. And Trevor, with his cameras, you're also giving them some publicity. Why don't we begin by saying, when somebody says something that we think it will have a negative impact on society, on the country, because the country doesn't belong to them. It belongs to all of us. If things go wrong, Trevor, it's the ordinary people, the mwananchi that will suffer. So we need to begin from there, from the voters. Can we say no to any leader who is a warmonger? A leader that instead of bringing peace and peaceful coexistence, regardless of our political differences, then we can say no to such a leader. When a leader stands up there and insults others, our reaction is that we cheer that person. And we give them a lot of coverage, regardless of what they have said. I think this is where we go wrong. And as Kenyans, I believe we can say, we hold the power to put you in power. And that's why they're looking around for us. That's why they're driving now. All the tints have been removed from their cars. All of a sudden, the sunroofs are very popular now. I was just telling the Archbishop as we were waiting that now the sunroofs are very popular. But after elections, there will be no sunroof and most of the vehicles will be tinted. We can stand up as Kenyans and say no to people who are warmongers. We want leaders of integrity. We want people who have the interests of the country at heart.
Yeah.
You just quoted the Bible here. I think we also need, as the religious leaders, we need to keep on reminding them what the Bible says, what the Quran says. Because I know the Archbishop preaches in church that love for others what you love for yourself. So before I stand up to hurl insults at Trevor, I need to ask myself, what would I feel if that was said to me? So we need to think about it. And that is an Islamic teaching also.
Yeah.
Again, do justice. When, let's say, you use a platform that I don't have access to hurl insults at me, are you doing justice to me? And sometimes we even stretch it to, we've had parents being brought in, parents who are long gone, but they're being brought into all this. So I think we Kenyans can stand up and say, this is our country, it doesn't belong to you. We are not going to elect leaders who are warmongers, leaders who are careless with their tongues, leaders who are going to lead us to conflict.
Yeah.
So it can begin with us. All is not lost. All is not lost. Even what we are doing now is good, and we should continue doing that. And within these days, people can change and say, we had the bishop, we had the sheikh, and we had Anne talking on this program of Trevor, and I think we're not going to keep on cheering people who are warmongers.
Yeah,
so we can do it.
But and do Kenyans elect the leaders they deserve?
The leaders we get, Trevor, are a reflection of who we are. Because at
we
the
get
end
the leaders we deserve.
exactly, we get the leaders we deserve. For those who are serious, those who believe in those who present themselves, regardless of them perhaps not having deep pockets, have proven that even from very humble beginnings, you can have leaders. And we've had those stories amongst us. We've had stories of people who have been able to change and bring reality to a lot of children who are not able to access education through well thought out bursary schemes that are distributed properly. Leaders who are able to think of the vulnerable groups within the population, who are able to think of people who have physical disability and others. leaders. And we also have leaders who have gotten in who don't think of anything else but enriching themselves. So it's really upon us. We get the leaders we deserve, and that's why we also reiterate, apart from listening to the leadership and looking at them, we as a people should also be able to have that value in ourselves, that esteem as a people, that we deserve respect. And I think one of the very great examples from history is when the late minister, Honorable Michuki, really changed the transport sector. And one of his biggest arguments was, why would you as a human being allow yourself to be boxed together with goats and chicken, and you're sitting 6 of you on seats that should be on 2 people. It's about who you are. This is your daily wage. It's you who pay that money to this PSV operator who's supposed to treat you with respect, who should respect your time in the vehicle and have perhaps not have things to watch or listen to that would offend you, to deal with it in a proper manner. If they're asking you to board their vehicle, to do it respectfully. So the conversation is at 2 levels, Trevor, that yes, you're looking at the leadership, but part of us deserving leaders we want and we should get is for us to have esteem as a people. And we kept on saying, even during this season, if you have left your work, you've left your business, you've left your family to go and listen to a political rally, there's nothing wrong, because that's a part of the process. You want to hear what people who are seeking office are telling you. But for them to use that time that could have gone to other things to insult other people is actually it's wasting your time and showing they have no respect for you. The same way, if they tell you a rally should start at 9 o'clock, they need to be there at 9 o'clock, for example. So we need to go back and feel that we value ourselves. And that's why we are saying the conversation about who we are as a people, that we are not going to accept things lying down. It's about who we are. And what we don't realize is that when we have a culture that we accept being belittled, having no esteem, it also passes on to our children, because they grow up not being able to be confident, not being able to call out leadership, or even at their own level when they're young. So we have got to go back and see what we are happy about, what makes us happy. And there are numerous examples. Look at even, I personally keep giving examples of even when you're driving on the road, and we know it's not a secret, it's public knowledge that at times there are routes in this country where you have certain business people engaging in certain businesses, but they have no disregard for other road users, because their wares, they believe, have got to get to the market faster than others, and as a result, they engage in dangerous driving. There are people who have lost lives because of vehicles that are ferrying certain goods in this country. So why don't we call that out? We are the same road users as those people. So we have got to learn as Kenyans, there's nothing wrong as demanding and asking, you are my leader, you are my esteemed president. Yeah. You are my esteemed prime minister. This is what we expect to see you. You are our esteemed deputy president. When we give you this opportunity, these are the problems you had. I'll give an example as I conclude, Trevor. Today, we've heard the news that parents have to collect the children tomorrow. And from where I work, there are so many parents who are distressed because they're telling us, look, I didn't even plan myself. Yeah. I'm working so many miles away from my child, yet I don't know, I'm a single mother. How do I even organize for this child to be picked? If they're not picked carefully, I will lose that child. We know there are cases of child disappearing in this nation. So even that opportunity, and that's why we are saying we need to have that respect, even two-way, that we'd have expected is a form of dialogue. Or if it happened, can we be told that there was that engagement? We've seen parents distressed, asking questions. Is there someone who will come, even just for the sake of their time, and tell them, parents, we apologize. This is what we discussed. This is what we ought to have told you, so that you prepare how to be able to collect your children. But we now become a country that normalizes. Today I can wake up and decide X is a decision. And that's where the brain starts beating us. So we have got to have the respect two-way, respect each other. Even if you're a person who has humble earnings, you are a human being. You have human rights. You have value. You are a person. You deserve to be consulted. You're not someone whose vote is just bought for that day for purposes of statistics, for someone to feel they have been able to win their race to office. Yeah, and Archbishop, you're the one who brought up the issue of institutions now. You've been having several meetings with the IEBC. What is the weakest link, and what must they do now to restore confidence in the people? 7 days to the polls.
Yes, one, I think I want to also laud them for IEBC for what they have done compared to what was there at this time, 2017. I think they have really done a good job of explaining many more security features on the ballot, many more assurances and plan Bs, as it were, in the transmission and other things. So I think they have really made put up their game. They've moved to another level, and I do hope that that will make them deliver better. Nonetheless, I think they still can continually gain the goodwill of the citizens by explaining a lot more how the system will work, how the transmission will be, so that we have to cut the anxiety of people or the conspiracy theories that are going to be peddled at this moment, or the fake forms that may be put on Twitter as being the new doctor. So we really must try, and it's a very uphill task for them because there's a lot that we can't control.
Yeah.
But they should put those and explain to the Kenyans how the whole process, and explain again, not get tired, so that the goodwill as well and trust increases.
Yeah.
However, the one of the two areas which I still think are still can be shaky is the issue of the electronic register, or the electronic finding the voters, that it's only electronic. I believe they have done plan B, plan A and B, but it is somewhere where perhaps we may end up with something mishap. So it's an area of concern. I don't think we should be totally worried, but it's a area of concern. And the second one is really about their efficiency.
Yeah.
That would like these results, as there will be tallying alongside what IEBC will be tallying, independent people doing those tallies, that there could be some mischief done alongside, and therefore creating anxiety that we don't want. So we'd like as short as possible the time of delay between the vote and the time of the announcing of the results, and that we also appealing to all the other parallel tallying centers, including the media, that they must be extremely prudent and not try to beat one another to the result. We are not running for the finish line as who did it, who announced it first. I think it is more important that we are announcing the same, or what is true, what is the results, the true results, not anything that is manipulated by anyone. And so there is a huge trust, and we're placing on anyone who claims that they're going to do any tallies. And here I believe is where now we go back to, can we depend on the parties in the tallying, and that they'll give us the true tallies?
Yeah.
I would hope that there'll be due honesty amongst them. Okay. So I feel that is one of the weak areas. The other areas are maybe less visible, loud, which are the fact that even the Kenyans, few as they may be in terms of voters who are in far-flung areas, might delay in the voting, or the vote might be delayed in coming in. There, the voter in Moyale, or in the extremes of Kitui, or down up there in the north of Malindi, is just as important as a voter in Nairobi.
Okay.
And so we should not somehow discount them and say, oh no, they are only 10, so that hasn't happened. So I think we should give respect to every single voter in this country, and let that their votes come in as far as possible on that day.
Okay.
So but I think in general, we want to tell the IEBC we want to support them, and we'll try to, and the government should give that support and show it, so that they deliver. We must tell the ref that, hey, don't worry, blow the whistle, we are with you. We can't start even before the game starts booing the ref because of his uniform. If he wants to wear red, he wears red, if he wears black. So I think there is a lot of that that we must get over.
Yeah, but Sheikh, even as we look to support the IEBC because they're the institution going to carry out the elections in the next 7 days, what must they do now to win the confidence of the Kenyans? Because just a few days ago, there were 3 Venezuelans who came in. The National Police Service said that they're here illegally.
Yes.
Then all of a sudden, they come, have a press conference with the IEBC and say that matter has been resolved. So, but resolved without explaining to Kenyans. Are they now no longer here illegally? Were they not carrying materials? What must they do now to win the confidence of
Trevor, let me begin by saying that the role of the IEBC is very clear in the Constitution. And there is, their terms of reference are very clear and what they have to do. For me, I think one of the weakest links when I look at what is happening in the country, and it's unfortunate, it's happening at a time when there are so many channels of information. Kenyans are accessing information through many channels, and IEBC, or even the government, cannot control that. But having said that, IEBC need to give information that people need to know out there, because it's human nature. When there is lack of information, people will start speculating. Like now on the issue of the Venezuelans, how it began, how it ended, I think it is not clear. So people out there start speculating. They have their own interpretation of what happened. So I think the IEBC should come out very strongly and share whatever information that they think is important for the public to know what they are doing. When there is, maybe there are some stories doing rounds in the social media or whatever channel of information that people are getting from, they need to come out very strongly and say, this is the position. And we as IEBC, we are in charge of this process, we are in control. And they should use the words. Like the other day, I was listening to one of them responding to something and said, when some political outfit was talking about we want this manual system, we want the electronic one. And he said, this has not come from the skies. I think that is not the kind of language they should use. So they should share information with Kenyans. Whenever there are any rumors doing rounds, they should come out very strongly and in a timely manner and explain to the Kenyans, because it's the right of Kenyans to have information. That is a constitutional right in the Bill of Rights. Kenyans have the right to have information, and more so, information that is so critical for people to have confidence in the electoral process. That is short term for the days that we have here. But I think we need also to look at the intention of the Constitution in as far as the role of IEBC is concerned. It's unfortunate many Kenyans come to hear of IEBC just when there is a by-election or when we have an election like now. But if you look at the Constitution, and we have a lawyer here, it's supposed to be continuous. Voter education is very important. And Kenyans should continuously be educated on the role of IEBC. That way, I think Kenyans will have more confidence in IEBC because they'll be empowered. They know what the Constitution says. But when we just wait, just like many political parties are only heard of during elections, we don't know about these political outfits until there is an election. IEBC should always be there, sharing information with Kenyans and educating Kenyans and empowering them. That way, they will earn more respect from the people, and people will understand what the role of IEBC is. So information for the remaining days, they need to come out clear on some of these rumors. I personally would want to know what happened about, because at one time, we thought they were IEBC staff. At another time, these are people
from Smartmatic.
At another time, that shifted, and it was they came here on a private visit. Then we see them in the media with the IEBC. So Kenyans are bound to speculate, and I cannot blame Kenyans for that. Let them come out strongly and explain exactly what is happening.
And from the ELOG perspective, has IEBC been transparent enough?
Thank you, Trevor. In terms of education, I'll start with the education. They have tried. They have tried to let Kenyans know, though albeit late in the day, for reasons they gave, including not having funding, for Kenyans to understand what the process is. In terms of information, of course, that is where there's been a challenge, as has been mentioned, and not so much it not being there, or when it's there, it's not very clear, but as has been mentioned, this very recent incident where you're having key national institutions not speaking the same language on the same issue, that of course now raises more questions. And this is where the problem starts, Trevor, that one, elections should be cyclic. That must be underscored. But the biggest challenge with our elections is that of trust. It is the reason why we have to outsource everything that has to do with our elections. Yeah. It's the reason why even when an election official will tell us something, we will not believe it, or if Kenyans starts misinformation on the same issue or disinformation, it even compounds the issue further. I think what I'd want to weigh in, and speaking to the issue of transparency by the IEBC, is that in these few days, I think the ship on education has largely sailed. We might not be able to do much in terms of water education. What is now needed is information, and very targeted information. So they need to be on standby. Last weekend was something to do with, we had the Venezuelan situation, we had the issue about the Form 34As that has now been discussed among the presidential aspirants. So tomorrow there'll be something. So because it's also very dicey, we are at the home stretch, they should not wait until it overly reinvents itself. They should be on standby to be able to explain to Kenyans, with the background that ours is a trust problem, that we have so many players who are now hiring people to be able to really push misinformation and disinformation, that you really don't want Kenyans to be reading about that story from the wrong bloggers or from the wrong source. So they need to be out there and anticipate it. And when you anticipate something, even when there's a misunderstanding and you're transparent about it, questions are not as many. But when there's lack of information, it gives room for unnecessary evolving of a story, unnecessary versions of that story, and misinformation and disinformation and propaganda, which we know at times a story starts in Nairobi, Trevor, and you go to the village, how it has evolved is something totally different. And interesting is the power of that propaganda is very, very strong. It's very hard to really change the mindset of people who then believe this is what Trevor is up to, this is what Anne is up to. And because we've had the history of having mistrust in the Electoral Commission, regardless of who's in it, then that carries. However, I think where we want to give credit is that they have been able to come out and speak to the public. We allowed them for involving stakeholders, even on very key issues such as preparation of strategic materials. We had the whole delegation, ILOG was represented, seeing how the ballot papers are presented. So when they speak to stakeholders, and especially in this context, because we know the most contested election is a presidency, that they need to be speaking to the 4 presidential candidates team. So anything small, they need to quickly caucus, and I think they're available, be able to resolve that. Then that way you're able to quell any suspicion, any misunderstanding. And by the time these main players, the 4 aspirants and candidates speak to their followers, then they tell them, yes, this has come out in the public, but we've had a meeting with the IEBC, and this is what is done. So I think that's very important, and it needs to be reiterated, especially in these few days getting to the election.
Let's see what you're saying on your feedback real quick before I take closing remarks. 7 days to the polls. What would you like Kenyans to hear tonight? Well, let's hear this. Asembo Munyewe says, Trevor, for me and my family, we shall choose a leader who has promising traits of leadership, and that who understands what it means to be a common mwananchi. He who knows what it means to have the pain of being a graduate and jobless at the same time. Okay? Let's see what else you're saying here before we take closing remarks on this conversation. 7 days to the polls. You're the one who will ultimately decide who you're choosing. Nitarmo says integrity in leadership is very important and cannot be taken for granted. This is a person who, in one way or another, will be in charge of public resources. You can only trust them to act in the best interest of those who elected them. All right, you can also tweet in, send in a message on 22422, tell us your name and where you're texting from, right here on Monday Report. B. Kazanik, okay, says looking for a future-oriented, progressive and enthusiastic leader with an insight on rule of law and respect for Kenyan Constitution. All right, let's see what else you're saying here. as we close on this conversation. We'll still have more of these conversations all the way to the 9th of August. Beatrice says, I will choose a leader who likes empowering others and makes hard decisions. All right. Sheikh, I'll start with you. Kenyans who are watching you tonight, 7 days to the polls, what would you like them to hear? And what would you like them to keep in their mind as they head to the polls?
I think what I'd like to tell Kenyans is that this country belongs to us, all of us, and God gave us this country. We are not Kenyans by accident, Trevor. And elections come and go. We need to have peace, maintain peace, now during these campaigns for the remaining days, during the voting, and even after that, and respect the institutions that have been put in place. IEBC is mandated to be the referee. Allow them to do their work. Do your part, go and vote, and maintain peace. Okay. If you're not happy with the results, we have the judiciary. That's why we have the judiciaries. We don't want anybody to take the law in their hands. No, let's say we are, like now we are all tense and we are praying. I know the bishop is praying, all of us are praying. We are praying for peaceful elections. Yeah. But if there's going to be problems, it's not somebody from outside who will bring it. It's ourselves. Actually, in the Quran, we are told, do not with your own hands put yourselves to destruction. So I'm telling Kenyans tonight, please, regardless of who wins this election, we have a country to keep. Yeah. Let us not, with our own hands, destroy this country. Okay. Yeah.
Archbishop?
Thank you, Trevor. My first appeal to Kenyans is that we pray. That we put God in the mix of what we are and put ourselves in God's hands. His gift of peace is really a gift to all of us Kenyans, and we must first value it, we must defend it, and we must safeguard it for the future. So it's important that we pray. It's important that we pray for courage to stand up in defense of peace. It's important that we pray that we are wise enough to make the right choice. The second is the day of election is not doomsday. Election is a day, I would say, covenant day. We're going now to make a covenant with those who we are going to elect, a covenant with our nation, and a covenant even with God. It's not a day to fear. It's not a day that things are going to come upon us, but a day where blessings may come. Irrespective of who we choose, we Kenyans can make a covenant before then that we are going to keep peace, that we are going to keep our country, but also after them, that we are going, after that day, that we're going to walk up towards making our country blossom. And third, I would like to say, as a country, we are the ones, the citizens, who are going to make this country go and grow. The cost of living will go down if we work. It is the citizen. We just need an enabling environment from this leadership that will make us blossom. So let's not think it's doomsday. Let's not think. So after that day, there will be losers, there will be winners. We've had Anne saying, let's learn the dignity of winning and the graciousness of accepting. But after that, let's go back to work. Next time, 5 years down the line, you have another chance. It's a process, it's a cycle. Okay. And so we ask, let, therefore, all of us look up to that day, come out and vote. Okay. Vote wisely. And then let's work to make ground that we may not make fully with a vote. Okay. And God will be with us.
All right. Anne, closing remarks?
Thank you, Trevor. I think my closing remarks will be to the IEBC. We have worked quite a lot with them and really lauding them. It's not an easy task that they're undertaking. We do have the benefit as a country of learning from our elections, albeit in very sad circumstances, but we've been able to see where we've gone wrong. And so when you look as recent as 2017, when we had the Supreme Court decision, we were able to see what we can rectify. And we do appreciate that no election is ever perfect anywhere in the world. But we understand our special circumstances in Kenya, that largely it's because of the mistrust that we are where we are. So I think in these few days, having said that a lot has been done, we can see even from some recent polls, the credibility and confidence in the commission has gone up, they can still take that even to a higher level. Remember, it's our commission, and our role is also to support them, that they're not doing this by themselves. So I think looking at these few days, one is to reiterate to them that they need to really amplify the information, as has been said. But then secondly, especially on the very sensitive issues around our elections, the transmission, that always is problematic. Can we have continuous vote testing of the electronic kits? We had the most recent simulation exercise that was quite successful. And so they need to continue doing that even within their private spaces, because, you know, largely it is the electronic element of our elections that's usually problematic. We also want to appeal to them with the election officials. We hope we understand they are training them. Can they continue boosting that, and even that talk beyond the technical ability to carry out elections, to infuse the value system, that whether you're a presiding officer or a returning officer or a clerk, that value that you're carrying this on behalf of the nation is very important. And then, of course, very important that we hope they'll start the distribution of the strategic materials in good time. The schools have now been closed. Let's remember that children are watching. So even as has been mentioned by religious leaders, it's not doomsday. There are a lot of countries where they vote today in the morning, in the afternoon you have results, and tomorrow you're back to work. So that's where we should be aspiring towards, that elections are not a crisis in our country. It's part of normal life. Leaders come, we give them a chance to serve, and after a certain period they go home. So our hope is, and even to the political class, it is an opportunity. It's a job you're seeking. So Kenyan people, remember that someone is seeking a job. You're there to interview them and give them that job. So be very clear on that. It's not them going there to take your vote and disappear. People are seeking an opportunity to serve. So vet them carefully. And for our leaders in these few days, please, we request you, be very responsible with the utterances you are really sharing with the nation. All eyes are on you. So please leave a legacy, regardless of your position, that while you're seeking office in this contest, you are respectful and you carried yourself in a manner that is worthy of respect.
So thank you, Annie Reri, ILOG Chairperson, Archbishop Anthony Muheri, and Sheikh Ibrahim Litome. Thank you all for making time this evening, and thank you most for watching. My name is Trevor Mbijalo. It's a pleasure being here on the Monday Report. Have a great night ahead.